Hey everyone, welcome back to another video on the Spring Boot series for beginners. So in this video, we will look into the Spring framework. In the last two videos, we have already seen what is tight coupling and loose coupling and how Spring framework avoids tight coupling or helps us to avoid tight coupling. So that is the main core idea for Spring framework that it avoids tight coupling. It helps us to create decoupled classes with loose coupling that the Java framework like Core Java or Java Enterprise Edition does not allow us. So what is exactly this Spring framework? We will look about the Spring framework in this video. So if you get asked in the interview, like what is Spring? This is a simple definition that you can answer. That Spring is a powerful, lightweight Java framework that designed to simplify the development of enterprise application. It helps create loosely coupled, maintainable, and testable application. So it is basically a framework. So Spring is basically a framework. So what is a framework? Framework is a software that provides us predefined structure and reusable components. So basically, if you develop the project using core Java, you have to set up the project folders, the directory, the structure, and the architecture like MVC pattern or DAO pattern, all this design pattern you have to set yourself. You have to structure the project folder by yourself. But when you use Spring, it gives you that structure by default so that you don't waste your time by structuring the project folders and all. You just start building the real world application that your client has given to you. So it basically saves that time of structuring and starting the things from scratch. It basically gives us a foundation that I will take care of the basic things. So you just do your thing that is actually important. So it is developed by Rod Johnson in 2003. So it's a trivia based question. You can remember it if you like, but generally this type of questions are not asked in the interview. So I wrote a word over here that Spring is a framework of frameworks. So what does that mean? This means that Spring contains several other frameworks inside it, and it is itself a framework as well. So why it is called a framework of frameworks? Because it provides an extensive ecosystem like to integrate with other frameworks like Hibernate, which is a ORM framework that is used to communicate with the database. It supports multiple technology like JDBC, which is Java Database Connectivity, JMS, Java Message Service, AOP, Aspect Oriented Programming. So it consists of many projects or many frameworks that gives us a whole ecosystem. So if I take you to the official website of Spring, that is spring.io, so you will see that there are many kinds of projects in there. So which supports the Spring ecosystem. So here, the features of Spring, what it can do, microservices, reactive, cloud, generative AI. Now a new Spring project has come out that is Spring AI, which helps us to integrate AI into the Java application. So here, if I go to projects, then click overview over here. So you can see that all these particular modules are one Spring framework. The framework inside Spring framework, that is Spring project, you can see. And these are open source and you can contribute to them if you like, and the development is going on in a rapid pace and we get many new projects or framework every day. So these are all the things that we need for Spring framework. So these are the components or the ecosystem inside the Spring framework. So if you see, it is a Spring database module. So in this module, you will learn how to integrate your database into the Spring framework. Then this is Spring Boot. Spring Boot is a framework inside the Spring framework. So it makes the job easier for us. But we cannot directly jump into the Spring Boot without learning what is Spring framework. So that is why we need some prerequisite knowledge of Spring framework. Then we can jump to Spring Boot. So it basically works on the basis of configuration. So we don't have to write much code. It will figure out everything by itself. But before that, we need to understand what is exactly going on with the Spring framework and how our project is being set up. So all these projects are basically the framework inside Spring framework. And now these are the key highlights of the Spring framework. So one of the key highlight is dependency injection. As we have learned in the previous video that we don't have to create and manage the object by ourselves. Spring will manage for us. And what are the objects called that are managed by Spring? That is called beans. So the normal objects we manage, we call it simply object. but the objects that Spring manage is called as beans. So the beans or the dependencies are injected. What is meant by injected? That is provided to the required class that needs the particular object by Spring Framework. So this concept is called dependency injection. Don't worry, we will be covering everything that is written here in details in future videos, but this is just the introduction about what is Spring Framework. So listen carefully about the features of Spring and how it makes the life easier for us developers. So another feature is that development of Java enterprise application. As you know, servlet JSP applications are very complex. If you want to check how complex they are, you can go to my channel and check the one or two projects video I have uploaded related to servlet and JSP. And for simple features like a CRUD application, simple projects like CRUD application, I have to write huge amount of code and set up the project directory and project folder by myself and handle everything like session, database, and everything like creating objects. I have to do that myself. So that becomes hectic, even for a small CRUD application like that. But if we go to the Spring framework, it manages everything behind the scenes and allow us developers to only focus on the business logic. So it minimizes the boilerplate code that is required for the project. So it handles everything behind the scenes like object creation, object lifecycle, transaction handling in database. All these things it handles behind the scene and provides us with the actual or allow us to write the proper business logic or focus on the proper business logic. So these are the framework that are inside the Spring framework, that is Hibernate, JPA, JMS, JDBC. All this we have seen in the notes and the Spring official website. So why we have to use Spring? So we have Sublet, JSP, all that Java framework beforehand. So why we have to use the Spring? So we have seen over here in the features that it allow us to minimize boilerplate code. It handles everything behind the scene and allow us to focus on the business logic. So that's all the things that are written over here, that it focus more on the application logic than handling infrastructural concerns. That is how to set up the project, how to handle the directory, how to set up the database, everything it manages behind the scenes and allow us to focus on the application logic. That is the project building. It allow us to focus on that more because that is the most important thing, and it helps in object creation management and configuration. It manages everything related to object lifecycle by itself. It reduces the need of manual coding and enables better maintainability. So we have to write less code if we use Spring Framework because it handles everything behind the scenes and we have to just write the actual implementation code for the project. So here are the features in the tabular form. So the first feature is modular and lightweight. So we have to add only the dependencies that we need. So that's why it becomes lightweight. So we don't have to add everything and into the project. So we just add the dependency that we need for the project. So that makes it lightweight. So inversion of control, dependency injection, we will be learning in the future video. For this video, I have already said dependency injection means to provide the object of a required class to a class which is asking for that object. So this is called dependency injection. Instead of we creating the object, we will ask the Spring to manage the object or the bean for us and provide the bean or the object to the required class when they need it. So what is this inversion of control? Inversion of control means that beforehand we were creating the object and managing its life cycle. So the control of creating objects was in our hands, the developer's hands. But now with the use of Spring Framework, the control is now with the Spring Framework. The creation, instantiation, and the object lifecycle is managed by entirely Spring Framework. So that is called as inversion of control. Beforehand, the developers were managing the objects, that is, the control was in their hands. Now the control is inverted. So now Spring Framework is in control of object lifecycle. So that is exactly called inversion of control. We will be learning inversion of control and all the related concepts in a future video. So for this video, just get a brief idea that what exactly is it. Then we have simplified database access. We can use JDBC in advanced Java like Servlet JSP framework. We can use JDBC concept. But if you have worked with JDBC, you will know that it's very complicated and have a very steep learning curve. So a beginner cannot just start from JDBC from day one. He have to learn the prerequisite concepts and everything related to it. So a lot of learning has to be done before using JDBC. But when we are using the Spring framework, that is Spring Data JP module of the Spring, so we don't have to have any prerequisite knowledge of JDBC. It is good if we have the knowledge because we will know that, okay, these things are going on behind the scenes. We have better clarity. But even if someone don't know, then also that's fine because everything is handled behind the scenes and we don't have to worry even one bit about it. And then testing support, because Servlet and JSP framework is very difficult to test and they don't have testing support, but Spring provides in default testing support like unit testing and integration testing. So that makes the life of testing engineers easier. Then we have security, which is the most important concept in the Spring framework and also the most difficult one, that is Spring security. So the Spring security module allow us to provide authentication and authorization for each page present in your website. So not every page can be accessed by every user that are using the website. Some of them are restricted for the admins. Some of them are restricted for a certain types of users. So we can give access to the page based on the authentication and authorization. So that is Spring Security all about. Now, scalability. The Spring framework provides us with a concept called microservices, and I think everyone is have definitely heard the term that is microservices. That is the most demand technology in the Java framework or in the Java field. So the microservices architecture means that the project that we are going to build, it will be divided into components. So that's basically a brief idea about microservices. So instead of everything of the project inside a one repository, that is called a monolithic architecture because everything is present inside one component or one architecture. We will be dividing it into components. So that makes things faster and also allows us better scalability. Now, Spring Framework also has embedded server that, if you remember, when you are using Servlet and JSP, you are embedding the server that is Tomcat. You have to configure it by yourself and set up all the things related to Tomcat by yourself and then start the server every time you run the project. But here, Spring manages this server and everything behind the scenes. And within the Spring framework, it provides the embedded server that is Tomcat or Jetty or any other server it provides us behind the scenes. So we don't have to manage the server anymore. We just have to create a start, the server will be start and the project will run. So these are the core concepts of Spring Framework, that is dependency injection and inversion of control that I have already discussed in this video. So now let's move into the modules that we have seen in the Spring.io. So these are the modules in the Spring.io. So we will see what every module does and what is their job. So this is the first module that is called Spring Core. So this is the base or the fundamental of the Spring framework. And definitely every beginner has to 100% learn this a Spring Core before jumping into Spring Boot because Spring Core is the heart of Spring Boot, and every concept related to Spring Boot, how the things work behind the scenes, is inside this Spring Core. So in the Spring Core, we will learn what is IOC, what is IOC container, what is dependency injection, how many types of dependency injection are there, what are beans, all these things we will learn in the Spring Core module. Then we have Spring MVC, that is Model View Controller. In this module, we will see how to create a RESTful API. So it is the most popular skill in today's job market, RESTful API. You need to maintain and develop, you need the knowledge to develop and maintain RESTful API for a job of full stack engineer or backend developer. So we will see what is RESTful API. Then we have Spring AOP, that is aspect oriented programming. So it is a paradigm, just like object oriented programming is a paradigm in programming. Aspect oriented programming is also a programming paradigm. So it helps us to debug our application using logging and all that stuff. Then we have Spring Data JPA, which makes the life of a backend engineer easier because Spring says that whoever will use the Spring don't need any prerequisite knowledge of database. They can just simply use this Spring Data JPA module and Spring will handle everything related to database for them. Then we have Spring Test, which supports unit and integration testing. Then we have Spring Security that we have already discussed. It provides the application with authentication and authorization for every page. Then we have Spring Boot, which is a framework inside the Spring framework. So it basically configures everything by itself. So that's why the term is written auto configured because it configures everything by itself So we don't have to write the configuration file using XML that we write in the Spring. So we don't have to do that in Spring Boot. We can use annotation and everything will be configured by itself. So we will see in the future video that how those things work. So Spring Cloud, Spring Batch, Spring AI, everything is the related to the ecosystem of the Spring. So these are all the Spring modules that we have. So there are many more modules. So just these are the main modules that are used very frequently. Now we will dive into a roadmap for beginners. So this is a complete roadmap for any beginner that want to learn the Spring framework and Spring Boot from scratch. So these are the things that they have to learn. So we will go step by step. So you can follow this roadmap and learn from any YouTube channel that you like or any course that you like. So, but this is the roadmap that you have to follow to become a Spring Boot developer. First of all, you need core Java fundamentals. So in that, the main concepts of Java will be there, like variables, loops. Then object-oriented programming will come. So you have to learn interface, inheritance, polymorphism, all this concept. Then you have to learn the design patterns like factor design pattern, singleton design pattern. Then you have to learn the collection, which is the most powerful concept in Java, that is collection framework. Without this, Java is nothing. So this collection framework is very important. So you have to definitely learn it. Then exception handling is also one thing that you have to learn. Then comes the Spring Core. So you need the Java fundamentals to jump into the Spring framework. So before Spring Boot, see in the phase two, we are learning Spring Core because I already said Spring Core is the heart of Spring Boot. So we cannot jump directly into Spring Boot without learning Spring Core or the actual base module of the Spring framework. So in this, we will see how to create and configure bins using XML that we have seen in the previous video, that how we were creating beans for implementing loose coupling using XML. Don't worry, I will be uploading separate videos how to configure beans using XML. In the upcoming videos, I will be providing videos for that. Then we will see how to configure using annotations. So this is XML based configuration. There is annotation based configuration as well, where we do not have to manage any XML file. We just have to simply use the annotation and Spring will manage everything for us. Then learn about bean lifecycle, what is bean, what is dependency injection, all these things you have to learn in the Spring core. Then you have to move into Spring Boot, where you will learn the REST API, what is REST controller, what are different types of mappings, get mapping, post mapping, put mapping, delete mapping, everything you have to learn related to the REST API concepts. Now you have to integrate database into your web application, that is using data JPA and Hibernate. So you can use any of the database like MySQL or PostgreSQL. Then you have to implement some design pattern where you have to implement DAO design pattern where you have to fetch the data from the user, then provide the data fetched from the user to some business logic where the service layer, that is where the business logic is being processed. And from that, you will fetch the data from the database and do your operation and then return the data to the user. So you will learn the design pattern as well. Then you have Spring Security, that is JWT token based authentication, which is very popular in modern day applications, and a role based authorization that I have talked before. What is role based authorization? Because every page in the website cannot be accessed by every user. So there has to be an authorization based on role. And then after learning the Spring Boot in full depth, you can move to DevOps and deployment. So how to deploy your web application into the cloud or any other platform like AWS and Railway like that. So this is the complete roadmap for Spring Beginner, and you can learn it from any YouTuber or any course that you like. So this is it for this video. We learned in today's video that what is Spring Framework, what is its highlights or the features, what are the different modules inside the Spring, why Spring is called framework or frameworks, then why to use Spring, what are its advantage, what are the benefits, what are the advantages it provides over other frameworks. Then we learned what are the modules inside the Spring ecosystem. Then we saw the complete beginner map for a Spring Boot developer from scratch. So if you like this video, you can hit the subscribe button for more such content in the future. If you need this notes, PDF or anything related to this video or any doubts that you want to ask, you can ask in the comments. So that's it for this video. Thank you. Keep learning.